welcome back to our culture talks with me and Y. And having covered already how our culture came about and the statement of empowering individuals and what it means to us and Chasyr, today in our third talk, we're here to talk about connecting people with their communities, which is something that sits at the core of Chasyr, basically, is what the app has been created to do. So why do you think community in general is important, and what do you think it means to people, especially nowadays?
Well, I think community is really important in terms of that is who's all around you. That is what you're part of. Now, whether it's a community that's far away, whether it's a community that's online, you know, we all hear of various communities, and we're all parts of various communities. But what's really important, I think, especially as we saw during the lockdowns, that when people started realizing that they were quite separate from their communities, it's almost like when we were forced to look at it and face it, realize that actually we're isolated. You know, I don't know who my neighbor is very much. I don't know who lives across the road. I don't know. You know, you come out and maybe, just maybe, you might say hello to them, but that's about it. You know nothing about them. They know nothing about you. Yet here you are right next to each other. You know, if anything was to happen, if a fire was to start or something like that, that would be the person who'd come and pound on your door to help you get out.
Yeah.
Right. So all this kind of thing is, and the local community, when things happen, when we see problems and issues happen, like we had when the coronavirus thing first broke out. You saw people come together as a community when there's a shared common cause, when there's just, usually it was a shared problem. I remember at one point we had a blackout in my neighborhood, and everybody came out of their doors to look around to see if all the other houses' lights were on or not. And then because we're all outside, we all started talking together. We all started communicating with each other and talking in ways that we hadn't done for 15 years. We've been next door to these people and hadn't said anything to them. And then start finding out more about them, that whole sense of community. And then when we went back inside, when the lights came back on, you suddenly feel, you know what? I'm part of something more than just my house or my building.
Your little box.
Yeah, sorry, go on. What was that?
Oh, why? I said your little box. You're stuck in your own little box.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, also I think with the lockdown, and especially the first and the second one, people realized that they had created not only that little box around their houses, but, you know, people would go and work at an office. They know the people that they work in at the office, most of them usually, you know, they have their own bubble of friends, and then they come back home. But as you said, they have no clue who lives next to them or above them or below them. Because, you know, all it is shortened to is a quick hello exchange when you terrifyingly bump into someone at some point.
Yeah. Oh my God, stranger. I've been living in
oh my God, someone lives next to me.
Strangers. Yeah, and that's crazy because in the past, when before all this technology, before all the work that we have, which allows us to travel further away and so on, you know, people would get on the bus together. People would share a drive to work together because they worked in the same place. And now, because of the modern society where there's so many opportunities, so many other things we can do different from each other, we've actually ended up becoming more separate from each other. I go to work in this place, my neighbor goes to work in something completely different. With once upon a time, we'd all be going to work to the same place together, probably.
Yeah.
So that whole sense of community that used to exist, more so, I mean, maybe we're even going all the way back to the 50s or something like that, but whatever rose-tinted golden heydays there were, but you get a feeling that people just did more together and they helped each other more. I don't think we do that so much anymore.
I think it also goes back to the fact that there is so much available to us right now. Not only are we stuck in our phones most of the time, but also, you know, you have endless opportunity. If I wanted to pick my stuff and, I don't know, move to California, I could move to California. So I'm leaving, you know, a community that I could have here and moving somewhere else. But realistically, you're not moving there to be a part of a tight-knit community. Whereas, you know, I think few years back, you know, a few tens, hundreds years back, people would stuck to their own towns, cities, villages, so they would know each other. Whereas now people feel like because they have endless opportunity, what's the point of getting to know people here, where I could pick up and move somewhere else and have to start it all of it again?
Yeah, which is imagine that tomorrow technology failed. Obviously, there wouldn't be any more of these conversations if it did, but imagine if we'd have to do it in person. Right? But imagine if all that technology failed. Suddenly, you don't know anything that's around you.
No.
You don't know any of the people around you. And I think we've got to make sure that it's really important that changes, mainly because for a start, if you don't feel you know the people around you and you don't have any interaction with them, you can potentially start to mistrust people. You can just make judgments about people just seeing them and just thinking what you know about them when you don't really know them.
Yeah, but and I think it's a normal human instinct. Like, we like to say that, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, but you'll always judge a person just on a surface. And it's, what do you do about it? Whether you're going to hold on to that judgment, or if you're actually going to open yourself and think, actually, I don't know that person. They might be completely different. But, judging people on the way they dress, the way they present themselves, is not a true representation of who they actually might be and the opinions they hold. They might actually be much closer to you than you think and expected them to be.
Yeah, and they either might be closer to you, or even better, they might actually know something you don't know, and you could learn something from them. And that's what everyone sort of learns from each other, and they grow out and build. Now, I mean, all this stuff is really great. We know we want this kind of thing, but in terms of what Chasyr is going to do for that, we're creating a system that's going to allow for people to operate peer-to-peer delivery. They're going to be able to. I'm going to go down to the shops. I'm going to buy some bread, right? You're nearby. You can see on the app. You can see that I'm going down to the shop, which sells bread and sells other things. So you can say to me, "Hang on a minute. While you're going down there, can you pick me this up?" And then other people around can also say the same. "Oh, wow, you're going down to the supermarket. Can you also get some eggs for me? Can you get this and can you get that?" And one that allows for that interaction between us, but that's still just transactional at that point. What happens then, the real magic happens when I bring the stuff back. And then I bring the stuff back. And of course, I'm not a delivery person necessarily. I'm not going to go and deliver it to everybody's house. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to come back. I'm going to be back at 1 o'clock. And we're all going to gather at the front courtyard, or we're going to gather outside my house, number 37. Everyone come 1 o'clock and come pick your stuff up. Suddenly, we've got all these different people from different part of my circle, maybe part of somebody else's circle, coming together face to face, meeting each other and actually interacting with each other. Oh, hey, I see you bought that kind of bread. Why didn't you buy this other bread? Well, I buy this bread because it's much healthier. It's nicer for you. I didn't realize that. Wow, maybe next time I'll get that. Or maybe it's summer and we're all buying barbecue stuff. And we're all gathering on this green where I'm coming to drop the stuff off. It starts becoming a little bit obvious by then. Hang on a minute. We've all got the stuff. You bought the sausages, you bought the burgers, you bought the veggie burgers, well, and you bought the rolls and so on. Why don't we just all get together and have the barbecue together?
Yeah, and also, who wants to have a lonely barbecue?
Exactly.
In their own little, box back garden.
Exactly. I want to have a big shared barbecue with lots of people there, so lots of people to interact with, and so I don't have to do the barbecue. Unless someone else is better at it, do it for me. I'm really good at eating the stuff. That's my expertise. But the whole thing is that now you're interacting and you're sharing ideas. You're sharing, and then it goes beyond food, because food is in many cultures. Food is a way we bring people together. You invite people around for dinner. You gather in big groups for food. I've got some Sikh friends, and every Sunday they go to the Gurdwara and they have a big gathering where everybody goes around and they cook communally. And you go in there and they invite their friends around, even people who aren't Sikhs, to just come and have some food. It's a very community building thing. And if we can get that, and even better, if we can use technology that some maybe rightly or wrongly blame for helping us to separate from each other, we're using technology, building an app that's going to potentially get people more together again.
And I think that's really important because, as you said, technology has been something and has been deemed something that doesn't really connect people. It connects people on, kind of the surface level of, oh, I know what my friends are doing on holiday, because they posted a picture about it. Oh, I know that my friend got a new job because they updated their profile on LinkedIn. But you don't really get to speak to them about it and exchange opinions about, like, for example, how do you feel about this new job? And I'm so excited for you, you know, what does this entail? You know, what's your next step? How was your holiday? What are you doing? It really reduces the conversation you can have with people. And so many people don't even call anymore. We just text. You cannot even get a, you know, tone of voice through text and what the person actually means. You're just sending empty messages and hope that emojis will do the work for you.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's the quality of the interaction between people. I think through technology, the quality can get lost.
Yeah.
Even now, you know, we can see each other face to face, but that compared to being in the same room together, we can get more of a
It's not the
feel of
same.
what's going on. It's not the same. Yeah, and there's certain visual cues, there's certain little things. Yes, sure, you can sense it visually here, but all the other non-visual things, apart from video and audio, we don't have. You know, that
Yeah,
whole
I
sense.
actually FaceTime, you know, when you FaceTime somebody, it tracks your eyes, so they're always under the impression that you're always looking at them.
Oh, I didn't
Zoom
know it did
doesn't
that.
do it, but
I
FaceTime
didn't know
does.
it
So
did that.
actually, you don't even have to be looking at people when you like having a conversation with them over the phone, because the phone will do it for you.
That's such cool technology, but such a bad reason for having
It's
it
sad.
exist.
It's really sad.
No, and this is why this is really important for us at Chasyr, is not just connecting people together from a very light touch, you know, sort of very light level, a very not shallow level, but a very surface level. We're talking about allowing for these connections. You'll get people who would not normally speak to each other. You might get some there's a bit of a stereotype, but you might get some older people who are afraid of the young kids who hang around in the street corner, thinking maybe they're up to something bad or maybe whatever. But actually, when they start to get to know some of them, because some of those kids come and deliver stuff to them, then they get that interaction. Then they know, actually, you know what, those kids are all right. They're just hanging around there because the social club's not open at the moment, or they've got nothing else to do.
And actually, they're forming their own little community outside in that street corner.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there is anything bad going on.
Yeah.
They're just kids that want to hang out.
Yeah. And that's, you know, I remember being in that same position in that street corner. We weren't planning on mugging anyone or doing anything bad. We just had nowhere else to go, right? And nowhere else to gather. And
you cannot go to a pub, unfortunately.
No.
No.
You imagine standing around the lamppost area. Suddenly, the kids start getting out their phones and go, "Oh, look, somebody needs a pint of milk, or somebody needs some bread, and they can't get out of the house. And there's the lady across there who's disabled, who can't get out. She normally has to rely on taxis to come and take her to the shop and so on. Okay, who wants to go? Who wants to do this run?" And you're between those kids, that's what's actually going on in that street corner then. And then somebody goes off and helps them, and you're connecting different parts of the community. I mean, you might have people doing completely different jobs, completely different roles.
But it's also bringing, you know, not only different generations, but different cultures together, you know, especially in the UK. It's you can come across any culture you desire to come across here. And you know, it actually will, I think, once people start, you know, it will, as you said, start as a transactional kind of an exchange. Then they get to talk together, and you know, let's say, I don't know, it's a completely different culture to where you're from, and usually wouldn't have an opportunity to speak with that person. Maybe even you have some, you know, ideas that are not correct about that culture. And all of a sudden you start having a conversation, you're like, oh, actually, this is a human being too. And actually, I really enjoyed speaking to them. And all of a sudden you find yourself that you're not as judgmental as you thought you were. You just didn't have the chance to meet somebody and actually have a conversation with them.
That's a perfect example of what I experienced when I was growing up. My parents weren't particularly highly educated. They didn't know an awful lot. They were ignorant of a lot of things, you know, just innocently ignorant. They weren't maliciously ignorant. They just didn't know. And, you know, they had their stereotypes and their prejudices against different people. You know, they had certain things they said about white people, about black people, all those things, because they hadn't really met any. They hadn't known any until they did. And now we've our family is so wide ranging. We've got African people in our family. We've got Caribbean. We've got Indian. We've the whole sort of Christmas dinner table thing. It looks like the UN in terms of gathering almost everybody there. And so much has changed in the time. But they didn't. But until they met someone and got to interact with that person to person, as a human being, rather than as a member of that culture or somebody else
Yeah.
that represents that, when they saw them, no, it's a person who has the same fears that you do, has the same issues that you do, has the same need for food as you do.
Yeah.
That then starts to bring people together. And I think this with what we're trying to achieve here, we've got a very good potential to help reduce a lot of the ignorance, as people have to, they don't have to, but people interact with each other from a positive perspective, for
Oh
a
yeah, no,
positive reason.
definitely.
And then that leads on to more conversations and more interaction, and ultimately to get to know each other at a deeper level. And when you
Yeah,
know
and I
somebody,
think,
you care and you will help them and you will do things for them, and they too for you.
yeah, and I think people should realize that this is it's really important to make connections. Not only, deepen the connections you already have with your friends, with your relationships with your family, which most people don't do anyways, but actually to go out and meet people that live around you. And to be perfectly honest, I always wonder, I wonder who, lives next to me. Because maybe one day I'll need to borrow a vacuum cleaner or something.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't even know their name, and you don't really
No.
know how to approach them. I used to live in a block of flats, you would see your neighbor coming out from the flat next to you, and there is that awkward moment of like, oh crap, like, I don't know what to say because
Yeah.
I don't know you, and it feels like bumping into a stranger in your own house. And I think, Chasyr would also give people excuse to connect.
Yes.
Not only the opportunity, but excuse, because I think some people actually want to get to know each other, but because of the way we live, we don't know how to start this conversation. I would think my neighbor would deem me absolutely deranged and weird if I knocked on their door and be like, would you like to sit for a cup of tea? You'd be like, who are you?
I don't know you. Dear, call the police. Yeah. I know, and it's crazy. And once upon a time, before we all had loads of sugar and all, I think it would be, you knock on a neighbor's door to borrow a cup of sugar. And nowadays, it might be you knock on the neighbor's door to say, hey, I brought the stuff that you ordered, that you wanted me to collect. Do you want to come? Do you want to get it?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's just, and the whole thing is about strengthening the community as you have more interactions with your neighbors and the people around you and people in that circle. As you build up deeper relationships, you then start to operate more as a cohesive community. You start seeing, instead of I'm part of my group, you're part of your people. Actually, no, we're all part of the same people. We live here together. We exist here together. Things that happen in this neighborhood affect all of us. So something bad that happens to one of us happens to all of us. When we start breaking down the lines between who's us and who's them, when we start extending that line to say, no, this is all us, I think that's when we can potentially change a lot of the issues that are going on here at the moment in the world. A lot of misunderstanding, a lot of confusion, and a lot of fear and a lot of doubt. When you feel you're in a place where you're at home, and it does feel at home, not like you're saying you ran into somebody's street, feels like you ran into a stranger coming out of your own house.
Yeah.
Actually, you feel that you know the people around and they know you, they care about you, you care about them. There's that sense of trust and that sense of togetherness that means that you feel good about your community.
And I think it improves the quality of life because, as humans, we are kind of predisposed to making connections, and we need other people around us. We're not desolate creatures where we strive to build communities. That's why we make families. We're not, I don't know, an animal that gives birth and just abandons the little one and just goes off to have a separate life. We want that life of other people around us. And I think if we start to get to know each other more in your neighborhood, in your office, at school, you realize that actually your life is so much better.
Yes.
And you might actually find yourself being happier because you know that there is someone next to you that is having the same problem, or there is someone next to you that is just wants to talk when you feel like you have nobody else to talk to, and that's really important.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you were to move to California and you dropped into a community, if Chasyr's operating in that community, that same ethos, that same intention, you'll just plug right into that, and you'll easily integrate and connect with more of that community as soon as you get there. If that's what, if you're missing your community back home, because this community's been built up in the same way. Now, they may not have the same opinions, they may not say the same things, and they may not want for the same things as the previous community you came to, but it still gives you an opportunity to easily plug into that and if you choose to become part of that community quite quickly, because there is that ongoing interaction that's happening all around.
That is really true.
That can help new people as well as just people who've been there for a long time. So I think we've got a really good opportunity here to do something that's not just practical and not just something that can help individuals, but really helps the much wider community. And ultimately, the world is made up of communities.
Yeah.
So we're strengthening those communities that will then expand outwards. If that continues in a positive way, that's going to expand outwards to help the world.